glad that we were able to start off with that this morning. So we're going from a known voice in the jazz community to a known voice in the Houston comedy scene as well. We have a special treat this morning. He is a first-time Community Moment presenter here, I believe, but he is no secret to a stage. He's actually the former winner of the Houston Beta Bracket Comedy Contest. Houston Oasis, he's speaking today on ethical comedy. Please welcome Mr. Michael Paris.
The first part of any set I do is always lowering the microphone.
I got a secret.
They don't give us ones this fancy in the comedy club, so I don't know how to use it. I should also make sure I'm not going to go over my time. I also wish that they'd chosen a better name for the Beta Bracket Comedy Competition. It's sponsored by Beta Theater, but it makes it sound like there was an alpha bracket I didn't even qualify for. And out of the people who weren't good enough to do that, I did the best. So yeah, I felt like this was a good thing to give a community moment about comedy. I think is very important, not just to me, but I think it serves an important role in society. It's an archetype that's gone back just ages before the modern times. It was a fact of life that only the fool could mock the king. And that's a very important social role to exist. Because when you have power structures where someone has a large power differential, especially over most of the population, it can be very difficult to leverage criticism over that. But that was always a niche that the fool could fill. Because of course, why couldn't the fool make fun of the king? Who cares what he says? He's just the fool. But of course, people were always listening to that. People were always making little notes. So even if the king was under the impression that the fool could make fun of the king, because what could it matter? He's just a fool. The people were always paying attention. And you see that today where it's actually a fact that most, I guess the generation that you typically call millennials, they're getting their news not from CNN, not from Fox News, but from shows like The Daily Show, back when we had the Colbert Report, John Oliver. This is where a lot of young people are getting most of their knowledge about what's going on in the world today from the fools. And these are the ones who are criticizing the king, and there's a lot of material there. I think it seems more trustworthy because you don't have to worry about an alternative motive. It's not what is this person trying to make you believe with this slant on the news? What is this person trying to move you to do? Their alternative motive is to make you laugh. They're taking something and trying to make it funny for you, and so because they've got that angle, we kind of inherently trust them more. Comedy is also very important, and one of the more touchy subjects that has come up in terms of comedy is free speech. There are a lot of comics saying controversial things, and then, when people attack them, they say, well, but it is important that I exercise my right to free speech. And of course, you absolutely have free speech, especially from a comedy perspective. This doesn't mean freedom from criticism. I'm free to tell whatever jokes I want. You are free to boo. Oasis is free to never ask you back again. Free speech is not freedom from consequences. And so, I think there are certain rules that people can follow to help them make what I think are the more ethical choices in comedy, better choices in comedy, to kind of avoid those situations, or if you're getting yourself into that situation, get yourself into it purposefully with a clear conscience and a clear direction that you're going for. The general rule is a phrase called punch up. And it's that if you are attacking something in society, make it, if there's a power differential, that you are on the lower side of it. You're also allowed to punch across. Theoretically, don't start throwing punches in the crowd. Punch up, because it's no fun to see the king mock the fool. That's the normal status quo, that's bullying. That is what we're used to seeing, that's what we want to see a change in. That's why we have this old archetype of the snarky servant. making fun of their master. In literature, you've got the classic example of Jeeves, you've got almost every person who's a servant position in Shakespeare, you've got perhaps most famously Geoffrey from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You know, the great works. You have these people that are punching up and attacking above their station because we want to root for the underdog. We, as a culture, want to see the Biff Tannens of the world end up in manure. And if you reverse that, if people are punching down people that they already have this power differential over, not only is it less ethical comedy, it's less fun, it's less funny, it's not satisfying that Biff Tannen manure need that we all so deeply have. And this doesn't necessarily mean that comics have to stay away from controversial subjects. It is unfortunate that a lot of comedians try to hit on things like sexual assault and domestic abuse as a way to elicit a shock response from the audience, especially since one of the human responses to shock is to laugh, albeit uncomfortably. It doesn't mean that you can never touch on these subjects. I just think that you need to keep with the mantra of comedy is meant to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable, which goes back to the power dynamic that I was talking about. I had a friend who was struggling with mental illness, and she was telling me about it. She's like, I'm doing better, I'm getting a lot closer to reality now, it makes me very happy. And so I, in my infinite sensitivity, sent her a text message asking how many fingers I was holding up, accompanied by a photo of a seagull. This raises several questions. Why would you do that? It seems insensitive. Why a seagull? Why did you have a picture of the seagull just waiting in the wings to be sent out? I'll answer the first. I had an unfair advantage that I knew the person I was talking to, and frequently joking about a subject is a way to make it more human and more relatable and easier to talk about. Anyone who's suffered a close loss of a family member, gone through any sort of serious disease, any rough time in their life knows that there is a dark cloud that hangs over that, and it makes people uncomfortable. It makes them not even want to talk about it. And humor is a good way to kind of break up those clouds, to take that deep, dark, unspoken issue and bring it out into the open, something that we can deal with, something that we can digest. And so, while it is still an area where you need to tread lightly, it is a way that you can comfort the afflicted, is to use humor as a way to ease things that are going on into something that people can talk about. There is the other side. There's the comics that I talked about that like to joke about insensitive subjects, the Holocaust, sexual assault, domestic abuse. There is a way to handle this, but it's a lot like the show Jackass. Both of that, absolutely do not try this at home. And if you get it wrong, you will end up looking like a jackass. And that is your own fault. There was the scandal a few years ago with Daniel Tosh, speaking, and then he told a rape joke, and a woman in the audience stood up and said rape jokes are never funny, and he attacked her with more rape jokes. That is using comedy to afflict the afflicted. He's taking someone that is already at the lower end of that power differential and using his pulpit to further attack them. It's not funny, and it's not ethical, and it made everyone uncomfortable, as we saw in the news for, a few weeks after that. Contrast that with one of my favorite comics, John Mulaney. He has a joke in which he is at a subway station late at night, and it's just him and a woman there, and the woman is being increasingly alarmed, and he's just looking around like, what is this threat? What is she frightened of? And then you realize that someone was surprised that it's him. It's like, she's afraid of me. I'm still afraid of being kidnapped. And if you pay attention, the victim in that joke is not the woman. The subject is not this person who is afraid. The subject is the culture. The subject is all of the societal situations that have led us to a point where just being in the presence of a man late at night makes a woman afraid. That is using comedy to afflict the comfortable, because it's just sort of a situation we've all become comfortable with. Like, of course, women shouldn't go out alone. Of course that is a risk, when really it shouldn't be. And so touching on these subjects, when done in a sensitive manner, can better society. It can afflict the comfortable and it can comfort the afflicted. You know, as people are fond of saying, laughter is the best medicine. But like all medicine, you need to apply it responsibly. You need to make sure that it's administered correctly so that it has the desired effect. Thank you very much. You can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/MichaelParisComedy. You can follow me on Twitter, that is at mdemetriusparis. You can come to me for spelling afterwards. And while unfortunately I don't have any stand-up gigs coming up, I will be in a sketch show on the 27th at Rec Room. You can look at my Facebook page for tickets. You can ask me about tickets. Thank you very much for letting me speak to you.